So there was a kind of a semi-viral clip going around last night, several different clips of a conversation that happened on Timcast IRL. It's one of the top, live video podcasts in the world. It's what I aspire, Quartercast Live to be one day. And I enjoy watching it when I have time. I don't always have time, but when I do, I like to tune in. And there was kind of a back and forth, and where Tim was taking a lot of heat. He got pressed by some of his guests about, whether or not they should have somebody on or not have somebody on. And I think I have a unique perspective here as a content creator, as somebody who does still rely on, traditional YouTube ad revenue as the largest chunk of my revenue. Although the more people that go to thequartering.com/join, the less I have to rely on, or the more people that pick up my gift box. By the way, we had a pallet arrive late to Amazon, so we have one pallet left. I marked it down to $49.99. The regular price was $99.99. So for $50, you get a bag of our blueberry cobbler, a bag of our Colombian roast, a bag of honey sticks, yogurt covered pretzels, and chocolate covered espresso beans, and free overnight shipping. That's about half the price it would cost to buy these things individually. Help me move those, clear out. I don't want these sitting at Amazon past June because it gets hot out. I don't want them melting. There's going to be a link in the description on the video, but also, if you're live watching me, it's in I just put it in the chat, or it's in the description. $50 is, I'm losing $20 each, but it'd be worse to have them melt on people's porches. So support the show, grab that. So there was a clip here going around last night that I'm going to share. And I'm going to share my perspective as a content creator, as well as, just a commentator.
Also making the claim that basically you're bought out by Israel or by Jewish
Which is Israel
interest.
first.
But
so the nexus of this conversation is the age-old calling out of Tim for being protective of his YouTube money. As somebody who has staff, myself, I understand the push and pull of this. Tim has way more staff than I do. I think I have about 10 people, 11 people full-time, that if I was fully demonetized off YouTube tomorrow, every one of them would have to go. Every one of them would lose their job in an instant. And as someone who runs a business, I think that other people maybe don't think of that. And it becomes kind of this, it's a weakness. It is a weakness. Because, for example, for me, I'll have anyone on the show. I had Alex on the show. There's nobody that I won't have on the show that I can think of. But I also know that there are people that YouTube says I can't have on the show, or that there are certain conditions that I have to have on the show. And that's why for the last 5 years, I have supported and grown my new media channels. For example, I was one of the first people, outside of Stix was always a trailblazer, to embrace new tech. Rumble, long before I ever had any kind of contract with them, I always published my videos there, free of cost, with no ads at all. And I've slowly built 307,000 followers there. And one day, hopefully, I'll have 1 million, and then I can just tell YouTube to pound sand. My videos routinely get 15 to 20,000 views on there. Right now on YouTube, maybe 80 to 100,000. So it's closing the gap. 20, it's not uncommon for me to get 20, 30,000. Here's one with 40,000 views on Rumble. As Rumble gets more advertisers, as more people go to, thequartering.com/join and save 20. By the way, if you are watching on Rumble, I'm the only one right now with the $20 off coupon. If you go to thequartering.com/join, I get half of that. My show gets half of that. And you get access to everybody's members content, Tim's content, Mug Club, everybody else. That coupon's going away soon. But anyway, that's why I support new tech, is so that people can't bully me around like that. But it is a weakness.
But would you not debate him on that claim?
They're talking about Nick here, by the way. Nick has been widely deplatformed. I think he's been debanked. I don't know that for a fact. I heard he was debanked. The problem with Nick is not necessarily in the fact that there are opinions of his that people disagree with, or that I disagree with, or whatever, right? it's the tactics that he and his followers used that create a scenario where, and if I had Nick on, I would tell this to him. Like, you have to understand that when people have you on your show and they're getting harassed nonstop by your followers for the next 2 weeks, it makes them not want to have you on again. And this is just a normal, a regular human response. And I know you can't control your audience, but you can, suggest, hey, maybe don't F this up for me. Maybe don't make everyone in the world regret having me on their show. And so Tim gets a lot of heat for not having Nick on his show, which I don't think is necessarily fair, because I have seen what happens to people who have him on his show. And, the problem is not necessarily with Nick, but with, the rabid fan base that will make your life a living hell for weeks after.
What's the debate? I don't get money from Israel.
He was accusing you of meeting with
coins.
Netanyahu. And
I met with Netanyahu, indeed. And Tucker Carlson met with the premier.
What did you guys talk about?
Netanyahu,
That's a bad look, too. I would not have taken a meeting with Netanyahu, especially if people think I'm in Israel, I'm paid off by Israel or something like that.
There was a Chatham House meeting with like a dozen plus journalists at the Blair House, which is basically a White House guest house. And he was talking largely about Iran getting a nuclear weapon and trying to go to war with Israel and the United States.
I think it's also pretty.
And Tucker Carlson met with the premier of Qatar.
Well, I'm confused on that too, why he did that. But I think a lot of people want to know this, because I'm not making any accusations, because I think a lot of people are too conspiratorial and think that everything's like,
By the way, Elijah's doing a great job of like soft shoeing here. He absolutely is making an accusation. I know Elijah. I've worked with him. I don't have anything personally against him. We talked at the RNC, but he absolutely positively is making the assumption here. He's making the accusation that Tim is afraid to have Nick on. But let me tell you this, 7 minutes into the video, I drug it out too long, I'm sorry. There are consequences to having Nick on your show. Why are people pretending like that isn't the case? And why would a content creator of any size willingly do that and have it, potentially shadow ban your channel forever? You catch a ban. The fact that his fans demand people willingly put their entire business at risk is the problem. That's that's why supporting new tech and, alt tech is so important. As it stands right now, my audience for my live show on Rumble is about 30 times bigger than it is on YouTube. And I could host Nick on Rumble, but YouTube still says you're responsible. Somebody gets a bee in their bonnet at YouTube. They say, we don't like that you hosted him. We don't think that you did an adequate job challenging his ideas. Your business is shut down.
Some undercut, cooked background thing where people are, getting top-down orders from Israel, and that's really not what's happening.
Because they're Israel first. They're deranged.
No, well, listen. Okay, we'll disagree on that, but I mean, that is pretty crazy to have a meeting with a world leader. That's how do you get invited to that? Like, why is
Netanyahu meeting with all of our right-wing influencers?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but why would he want to? Why would a foreign leader then?
Is Tim's live stream the second biggest in the country? That's not true. There's at least 3 or 4 people on Twitch that are bigger than him. It's definitely, I would argue, it's probably the second largest news live stream. Maybe that's what he means. But even that, it wasn't. I mean, Bongino was way bigger. Crowder's bigger. But I mean, he's still very large.
Want to meet with you because you have a big podcast in America. Like,
because he's advocating for U.S. support for their war with Iran.
So, but why would he need to talk to you to raise
it's called
support?
Lobbying.
Well, what did he lobby? Like, can you say, or is it NDA?
Yeah, he was trying to convince a bunch of media personalities that the U.S. had to support Israel, and I would say 70% of the room told him to screw off. What did you feel personally on that? Like, do you have an opinion on that? Yeah, I think he was. in a matter of speaking, I mean, nobody literally said screw off, but there was a really funny moment where he's like, what does Iran say? They do not say death to Israel. They say death to America. I'm not supposed to quote him, so I'm paraphrasing, I guess. I don't know. He said that. And he goes,
Pretty good impersonation.
and what do you think happens when they get a nuclear weapon? After they will be stopped by us, but they will come for you.
No,
and
they
then immediately someone goes, no, they won't. Just blurted out in the room. It was hilarious. And then he was like, yes, they will. And they're like, no, they won't. And then someone else goes, their nukes can't reach us. It was funny. But the idea that when Nick Fuentes says something like Tim Pool is bought and paid for by Israel, that's because he's lying. Like,
I do not believe that Tim Pool has ever taken a dime from Israel knowingly. I also believe he has not taken any money from Russia knowingly, which are the two biggest criticisms about Tim. I think that Tim has a business to run, and he knows, we know, the price that is paid. So I don't know if you win. This is how Tim's looking at it, almost certainly. Now, he might disagree with me. If I'm Tim, or hey, look, I've got a lot to lose too, right? Is it worth torpedoing my entire business just to prove that I'm not afraid to destroy my business? That is the dilemma. You get what I mean? Like, have me on, have me on. He knows what's going to happen. Now, if he wants to debate him on InfoWars or on Rumble or something like that on somebody else's show, then Tim should do it if he wants. But the thing is, like, the thing I don't like is when people are like, well, have him on or you're a puss. And it's like, no, I agree. There are weird things that happen when you platform certain people. There are certain people that you can't put on channels. There are consequences for speaking out about specific nations. And I don't agree with it. But I don't own YouTube, and I can't change that. You know, and so I don't know why people are so, like, rough on Tim, because that is just that's the exact situation that they're putting Tim in. Now, if he doesn't want to go on Alex Jones, you know, that's on him. I would love to go on Alex Jones. I don't know anything about Israel, so I don't know what I would talk about it. But I would happily appear on Alex Jones with Nick, happily. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I'm not afraid of his ideas, but I am afraid that YouTube will destroy my entire business overnight. I am afraid that I will lose all my sponsors. I don't deny that. Like, that's the, you know, I don't deny. I do not redeem it. I don't deny that there are real consequences for speaking out about specific nations. I don't know, like, I don't know if it's that Tim denies that fact and that's what they're mad about. I don't know. But I don't deny that, yeah, I don't think what's happening to Nick is fair. I think he should have a platform everywhere. But I'm not going to torpedo my entire business and have to fire 10 people to prove that point. There is no doubt about the fact that there is a very real penalty socially and specifically online when you host certain people with certain ideas. Nobody's denying that. You know what I mean? I am absolutely in favor of free speech. I'm happy to, whatever, you know, they say are the requirements, I will do it, and he can come on my show all he wants. That's, phrasing was poor on that. But I don't understand. I think that they need to go about this a different way. If they're going to criticize Tim for not having him on the show, they can't really say, hey, well, destroy your business or you're a cuck. That's not like, you know, there's a phrase for it. It's called selling wolf tickets. It's a situation whereby you dare someone to do something that would obviously cause self-destruction for the entertainment of an audience. Shout out Omega. That's what it is. You know, I know, and you know, everybody knows. What can you do about it? Well, you do what I did. You support new tech. I invested my own money in Rumble stock. I'm telling people to sign up, to go into quartering.com/join and sign up and support my show and support Rumble. Until such a point in which somebody with a large platform can make their living exclusively on Rumble, a lot of this stuff isn't going to change. You can criticize America's greatest ally all you want if you're a leftist. But if you're a conservative or somebody who's middle of the road, there is a real price to be paid for that. And I don't know who doesn't know that. And, pressing Tim about it, I mean, I wish Tim would just say what I said. Okay, you're right. If I host him, I'm going to get deplatformed. Is that what you wanted to hear? Because I'm not willing to do it. That's the answer. But there's nothing wrong with that. Only an absolute loser would blame Tim for not wanting to, torpedo his entire business.
Do you literally believe that Israel gave me cash money? The liberals claim that Russia gave me money. Lies. And the Israel First people claim that Israel gives me money. Stupid lies.
Look, Israel. Do you think that if you came out genuinely with a very strong aversion to Israel, to Zionism, and you started using the show to expose not just Israel, but really get into some of this corruption and what's happening with politicians being paid off, that you would be able to maintain the level of monetization on platforms, that you'd be able to bring?
No, the answer is no. Why does Tim just say that?
The same, U.S. government officials and have the same place and invite and platform in right-wing or free speech, like areas of concentration and meetup. Like, do you think that you would have that same access, or do you think there would be penalties? Like, you could be
yes, there would be penalties
punished for coming out. And
why is that? Is somebody afraid to say
for being
what's going
maybe
on?
more accusatory, more investigatory of what Israel and Israeli influence is having in the country? Like, do you think there would be negative?
That's true for any subject.
Do you think really if Qatar, you'd be punished in the right wing if you looked at how many people were?
But nobody cares about Qatar. But if
they do. Seth Dillon does. Joel Berry does. Colin Wright
My
does.
point
James
is,
Lindsay does.
Qatar isn't as impactful as Israel in American politics.
They claim they are though. That's what
they do spend a lot of money on foreign. They spend more on foreign lobbying than.
Yeah, I just I don't know. Here's my advice to Tim. Just say what I said. Everybody knows that there's a penalty, and I'm not going to destroy my business to prove them right. Like that. That's all there needs to be said. That's all that they need. That's all that needs to be said here. Make sure you pick up some coffee at 50% off while it lasts, and support the show at thequartering.com/join. Supporting new tech will allow more people to say more things.